So if it's not one pitfall, it's another. And with maple syruping, there can be pitfalls. So this is what I came across. I came across it the day before yesterday, and I didn't think much of it, and I came back and I saw what was happening. So these are a couple of maple buckets in my front yard, and on this side of the tree it gets sun later in the day and in the evening, and it has been a lower amount of sap in the bucket, and I just attributed it to being on the west side of the tree. So I've got 2 taps on this side just because it gets more daylight, and it is always about a half full bucket, where this one might be a couple of inches. So I came out here and I empty these a lot of times just during the day, and there's traffic going by, and I just try to get about my business. You have to check your tubing. And this is the thing that, you know, irritates people who have tubing systems set up in the woods. It's the wildlife, because it is easily knocked down by deer. The taps that I use up here are stainless steel. And in the woods, when you have maple tubing set up, you have a lot of plastic couplers and tubing connectors. So this is the tubing I took off. And you can see here, see that burr? See that burr right there? I came out here and the sap was flowing into this bucket. Very, very little. And then I saw here, it was dripping right down. This is a squirrel bite. Squirrels love this. So they like the salt that is in bleach when you clean the lines. So it's recommended that if you can, clean the lines with a peroxide product. So I'm going to have to remember that into my little notebook. And they are after the sugar. So I did a little research about squirrels. I think the family is going to be taking up squirrel hunting, because what I learned is a squirrel starts reproducing after 1 year, and I'm sure it's probably like cats. They can probably reproduce when they're younger. They can have 2 litters a year, and it is average 2 to 3 baby squirrels per litter, but it can be up to 9. So think of, you know, I've never, 30, 40 acres of woods. How many squirrels are reproducing out there every single day? So I do not want to lose all of my tubing when we go to tubing only. I resisted the urge of investing into all of that feet for this year, just because we have still some surplus from last year, and I really didn't know when I would want to pull my tap. This is a really long maple season this year, and we're going past April 1st, and we are going to be going into at least the 2nd week of April. So I checked the weather forecast, and there's about 9 days ahead of us with freeze and thaw still. So I may kind of bail out and, you know, pull the taps. It's not worth getting buddy sap on the warm days. Like today it was supposed to get up into the 50s, and I had a batch of sap last week get really cloudy after about 4 days, and normally you can let it go a little longer. This particular batch sat in the plastic tote for 2 days before we pumped it to the stainless steel tank. A nice thing I will tell you about the milk tanks, the stainless steel tanks, they are insulated. So that does keep your maple sap fresh a little longer, so that's very helpful. But I did learn I need to get a heat tape for the bottom where the valve is, because it is just the stainless steel and not double walled right there. No insulation at the outlet valve. And my valve froze a couple of times, and I had to start my boiler a little later than usual. So I'm going to go check out some firewood now. So normally I keep a log on my yard buckets, and a problem with having a log is when it rains, sometimes the water will accumulate on top of here, as you can see, and if it's very heavy rainy, it'll seep down into those holes and turn your sap colors right in the bucket. So you can see here, and as I said before, every one of my buckets, they're all made by Encore Plastics. They all have a slightly different effect of how the sap looks in the bucket. So, and of course, remember, we are using food safe buckets. So I switched to rocks on my buckets. See, now this one didn't run at all. So they're starting to dry up. There's one key element in pulling your taps. The second thing is, if you're seeing buds on the trees, they call it buddy sap. It's usually yellowish or greenish. It tastes funky. You don't want to make syrup out of that. So here, you see the sap is running today. The bucket's overflowing. So I always like to see that. Now, this is one of my runner trees. And I really want to get this batch of syrup finished up today. So I don't think I want to add this. And we're coming into another syrup run. Now this one's getting a little bit cloudy, but you can still see clear down to the bottom. So I would taste that before I added it. These two trees here just run superb, and the two trees that I just left. So because that one was much lower than the other, it tells you that that tree is probably starting to dry up for the season. We still have a few days left, so we could run another batch, possibly even two. And my batches are anywhere from 6 to 10 gallons a piece. So I've been checking on these buckets, and this sap has been sitting here for a few days already. So I just want to show you. See, that came out of the tubing, the tap. That's bacteria. So when you cook your syrup, which I was going to say, that tubing, see, it starts getting yucky in here. So you can snip that off. It's gross right up in there. And get rid of it. You can do a quick bleach soak, which I've done mid-season because those warm days. I'll just go back and snip that off. But it can grow back up into the tube, and it gets up. Sometimes you can see it. Sometimes you can see it right in here. They're making check valves so that you can put a check valve in the tree first and then your tap. And that keeps your holes open longer. But these two trees, usually when they're running right full. And then I gauge my collection in the woods off of these. So see here, I got a ton of bacteria growing. So we're going to just come back with the snippers and snip those off. Bacteria eat your sugar. So having the refractometer at this stage is good, because if there's like 1% or less, I'm not going to mess with boiling it because the bacteria have been eating it. I'm not going to boil 80 gallons of sap down for 1 gallon of syrup. So it's important to check your sugar content, because you don't want to be spending more money or more time into firewood for the amount of profit or gallons, you know, if you're just using it for yourself for the finished syrup product. If I was going to boil down 80 gallons of sap, you know, it takes a lot of firewood. So husband came right home yesterday and he split some more firewood for me. There's just a little bit left here, and I've got some stacked up, but let me show you what's going on with the fire today. Now, my syrup ends up being anywhere from 6 to 10 gallons, like I said, and that is usually 2 totes, roughly about 400 gallons. I don't like it to be much bigger than that. It's really hard to move this pan, even with 2 people, because you're sloshing around hot syrup that's 200 plus degrees. So when it's actually finished, you know, at 219 degrees, that can be quite full. And I keep, right now I just threw 4 logs on here. I keep the fire low on a finishing day, and because I do such a high volume of sap, A cook can take 3 or 4 days. If I'm using older wood, you know, wet wood, I've got that pile behind the barn I've been using up. It's always 4 days, but this is the 4th day today. So we just stir up the hot coals, throw some smaller pieces of wood on there, and then I just add a few logs at a time so that it finishes slowly today. That way it's not rushed to cook it, rushed to get it off, get it in the house and finish it the last couple of degrees, filter it, bottle it, everything else. So I just kind of take it easy on finishing day a little bit, because just finishing day in itself is a big job. So while this has been finishing, now these are my collection buckets. These will all get bleached out today. And you can see here we got a little bacteria, so it's important to practice cleanliness in between with your collection so that you're not getting overloaded with bacteria. And this is the first boiling season we've had to use the stainless steel tank. I had picked it up a while back, and then he got it set up here on the skids and didn't get a chance to move it. So I had my valves all hooked up and everything. I've got it rinsing out right now. I rinsed it really well and then put some bleach water in it, and I've got the bleach soaking in. So see there, I gotta put a few more gallons in to reach up to my water level. Now, if the husband was home, you could go in there with rubber pants, fishing pants, waders, and scrub it out with a brush. We have a long-handled brush, but this manhole here, I definitely don't want to be in there with bleach. But you could go in with a spray bottle and bleach it so that you can get back out. But I'm sure you'd have to wear a respirator, so I don't recommend it. But you can actually reach all the way to the back with just the hose sprayer. So a pressure washer is a great way to do it, because you can add your cleaner right into the pressure washer tank. Then it's going to mix it for you as you spray it. So much safer way to do that. And just like our little Husky power washer we had a reservoir for cleaning. And they make acid wash cleaners that you can get right at Tractor Supply for cleaning out your stainless steel tanks. So if you don't want to use bleach, you could do that.